WordPress powers 43.5% of all websites globally. And Yoast, which you are the principal SEO at, is the most popular SEO plugin for WordPress. By far, it's had over 819 million downloads. And you are the principal SEO at Yoast.
It's weird. With great power comes great responsibility, right? No, I don't have
You
that
have
much
the
power.
world is on your shoulders.
No, I mean it's weird going in filling in to people like Yo Shoes, and taking over, SEO technical elements, right? It's a lot of hard work, but I've got support. I've got Carolyn Shelby, who's my counterpart. So there's two principal SEOs here. So she's come from an enterprise background, and I've come from an SMB background. So it's a perfect match, but we still understand the technical best practices, as well as looking at product innovation, right? Because there's quite a few things that are happening at the moment in the search landscape, I hear.
A little bit,
A
like a
little bit.
few.
A little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay. So ChatGPT came out in December 2022. You've been in the game for a long time. What do you think the biggest change in SEO has been since then, since December 2022 when ChatGPT came out?
It's the fact that your neighbor's grandma knows what ChatGPT is makes you think about how much it has reached the mass market, and that Google is at risk of not becoming a verb anymore, as it was. You would Google things, and instead of saying search for something, and now people say, "Oh, I'll just go on ChatGPT and ask that," or "I'll ChatGPT it," and they're for the first time, I think the Google changes that they're maybe at risk of losing this, can I say, monopoly, which they have over the search industry, from people searching, not just us, right? And we've just been used to say, well, if they have 90% of the market share, then we'll just do as they say and the other search engines will follow. But this is different. These are assistance engines, and it does something beyond what a search engine did, which was just answer queries. Now it's doing much, much more, and therefore it's more embedded. And the bigger shift is the way people behave. And as such, Google, you can see they're reacting to some of this. I reckon if ChatGPT didn't go up the way it did, then maybe Gemini wouldn't be what it is today, and AI mode wouldn't have been released, and so on. But you've got to get up with the times, and they are changing. But it's making it much more. Is it difficult? I would say at the moment for us as SEOs, because it's hard. It's harder to report on things, or things we were reporting on are losing their value or impact into what we do. So, for example, higher impressions, lower clicks. But does that correlate with lower revenue? There's all of those kind of questions that go in it, and it will change the way that we act as SEOs, if we're even called SEOs in a few years. And how we react to each channel that's attracting us as brands, and word of mouth, and the thing that goes into the old school elements of marketing.
When you said Google is at risk of losing its monopoly, what does that look like?
That I don't know, because that I think is the most interesting part, because through time we've always seen one dominant player, especially in the early years, that of whatever it is. So if we take away search, because that was obviously Google, or is obviously Google still, we look at social. And when you were talking to me before about Tumblr, MySpace came into my head, because that was to me the first social network, and it was the one you could join before Facebook came out. And at the time, I remember Facebook coming out and it being the underdog, and now it dominated. And whilst it's not as it's a bit more saturated in a good way, and there's no monopoly on social. It's clear that like Meta does have an upper hand with what they own now. And I think that in the next 12, well, actually, not even 12 months, 3 to 5 years, that monopoly from Google may shift towards either ChatGPT or OpenAI as a whole, and whatever products and services they're going to do next. But maybe this is a weird democratization of assistance engines that we seem to be seeing. Like, there's quite a few out at the moment, and they all have their own shtick. They all have their own little niche skill. Like Claude has been more popular for developers, for example, and you've got Perplexity that's very good for content marketers, better than say ChatGPT, which is more of a generic answer all kind of thing, but it is weaker at things than say Claude and Perplexity. They have their own niches, and I think more of them will come out, and then you'll have, a bit of M&A, and then they might form. I'm looking at Meta, right? They didn't always own Instagram, they didn't always own WhatsApp, and it's what happens in those 5 to 10 years from now. So between now and 5 years, it'll be this setup to this whole new thing. Then there'll be the settle, and then there'll be this M&A, and then there'll be a new monopoly of some company that's either OpenAI or another one that doesn't yet exist or seems to be an underdog right now. For all we know, Claude could be 90% of what people use in 10 years. And everyone was like, remember when ChatGPT was the big thing and everyone was using it, and then Claude did something or acquired Perplexity, or, all of those weird things that make it. These are the stepping stones to what will happen. But I think it's good, though. It's good for some people and bad for some people. Like, open web is at risk, informational based search is something that's now harder to connect to the user with. Brand will become more important than it was before. Link building isn't going to have as much value. All of those unlinked mentions are now having more value when they were rejected back in the day because there wasn't some followed anchor link or some other, KPI that had to be achieved that month. So it's going to be interesting how the online marketing world changes. I hope I answered your question in all of that.
That was actually good because you brought me to a question that I announced that you were coming on this show, and I had some fans ask questions, and one of them was, what is the future? Someone wanted to know. This is from Mano J Matey DM, and I like calling out the watchers, the listeners who listen to this podcast, who asked, what is the future of top of funnel and middle of funnel content?
That's a hard one, and it depends, but I can't really predict what will happen because I don't think many people can. They're only now, the ads are only starting to go in, so it's going to be interesting to see how you would have to understand more than one search intent. So, for example, you can't just do informational. It has to be informational and commercial, and informational and transactional. There has to be some form of incentive on the visit, or even in the information for people to visit the site. And now we've got a more difficult role of pleasing the LLMs and pleasing the AI platforms, because they're now the gatekeeper between, the search and us, aren't they? And it's going to be about managing their expectations and what they think, which at the moment is quite mysterious because you've seen all these reports about, I think Apple brought one out about how as soon as it gets a bit too tough when it comes to thinking, it kind of shuts down. AI as a whole, not shuts down, but it just can't handle the things that we can still handle that bit better. And when that pivots, we're not going to know how exactly it's going to feed what we're giving it. And I think that's going to be hard. So it's very unpredictable. But for now, we have to just go by the normal ethics of what we've been doing in marketing, not just online marketing, but marketing in general. We adopt those principles to do even what we're doing in SEO and brand and content, right? Be the brand, try and connect with people, try and get someone interested and vibrant about a product or service, and then try and get them to convert as quickly as possible. But for all I know, there might be a thing where you can just buy something just through a chat without even being in a website, and it'll just handle it for you, because that's not going to be impossible in the next 2 years.
Maybe, but I mean, I use AI tools a lot, like all of us. I think any SEO uses AI tools a lot, and the hallucinations make it. I would not trust it with my credit cards. Like at this stage, with the not yet, but also, I said this to Lily Ray on X, and she was showing some crazy hallucination, and I said to her, this is why I don't believe, like the company heads say, that we're going to have AGI by 20. I said, I don't think the current way that LLMs are being done is going to be the path to AGI by 2030, like the heads of AI companies are saying. And I believe that the heads of AI companies are going on podcasts saying AGI by 2030. They're going and saying that just to get more funding. But I don't believe what we have with LLMs are going to be the current path to AGI.
I think they're just trying to get the current AI technology to figure out the rest of the way, and they're hoping that by 2028, I don't think we kind of completely understand to do it ourselves. We're going to need their help anyway to get to that point. and they don't know how to do it yet.
But what I'm saying is I don't think they can, because LLMs they just repeat to you what they already know. So
Yeah.
who's going to tell them how to make the AGI?
Well, that's going to be the big question. It's like that's the technology version of like the Big Bang, right? Like when's it going to be that crossover where they can figure out stuff that doesn't need our assistance in order to do something even more advanced to get to that point? It's going to be, can they help themselves, like you say, or are they always going to try and never be cleverer than the cleverest man alive? Because they can't
they're
get
amazing. They'll get better at any specific task, but like when it really comes to thinking, like very out of the box thinking that will lead to designing human level intelligence and creative intelligence, like me and a lot of my developer friends, really advanced developer friends, the ones who go and train, like one of my closest friends and a co-founder for several projects, he trains developers who go work at Google, who go work at Amazon, and he's completely bearish on LLMs leading to AGI. I personally think what will happen is, I don't think Google will switch fully to AI mode. I think it will be too unreliable. I think the future of informational content is going to be user-generated content and not informational content on websites. And then I think because of that, you will have AI companies training off YouTube transcripts and TikTok transcripts and Instagram Reel transcripts and Reddit posts and X posts, because less and less people are going to put out informational content on websites. I believe bottom of funnel, purchase intent, transactional content is the best, and it has always been the best, and no one knew that it was the best, and it's now especially being revealed to be the best. But in terms of like how are LLMs going to get their informational content? I think it's going to come from user-generated content platforms. This method of marketing is so effective, I had to make sure it wasn't against Google's rules before I kept doing it. It's a form of SEO I call compact keywords. Whereas most SEO focuses on putting up articles to answer questions how, what, when, compact keywords focuses on putting up dozens of pages that sell to searchers who are actually looking to buy. These pages rank on Google and convert so much better than normal that when I discovered this years ago, I couldn't believe this was allowed. It's less work too. The average compact keywords page is only 415 words. Compact Keywords is a 13-hour deep course on getting sales with SEO. A customer recently said, "Each lesson is dense with information. You're giving years worth of experience boiled down into 15 to 30-minute lessons with no filler or fluff. I feel like I'm gaining a new superpower." Compact Keywords is about setting up an SEO funnel that brings you sales for years and years and years. It works with AI, it's less work than traditional SEO, and it makes way more money. You can get it now at compactkeywords.com. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, and that's why Reddit's always interested me.
Reddit's
and the Reddit
crazy.
Deal, it is, and I always thought, some people say, "Oh no, Reddit's stupid to have this deal and bring it out into the SERPs," but then I also thought of the learning aspect of it. If you want to know the true range of humans as a species and how they think, Reddit is your actual best source of information for that, because it's raw in every way possible in any channel, and they talk about the most random things that only humanity would even dig up in their heads, and that's why I think it was a good deal. But like you say, user generated content is really important, and the fact that Google had this whole shtick about third party perspectives last year just before the Reddit deal was, I think, alluding to that in the future about how it is more important. But then you have to define what's user generated content, because I've been thinking a lot about machines will need to figure us out as humans, and there's way beyond what, say, Schema offers. Look at a person's entity in Schema is quite basic, right? It'll know what my age is, my gender, my job, but it doesn't know like what makes me tick, what my beliefs are, and how that can influence myself in marketing. Like we try to do it. If you do a cruise advert, you'll have all of these nice beaches and stuff because you're trying to relate. That's what you will experience, but it doesn't know whether I like cruises or not before it's showing it me, unless it knows some history in my emails and do ads. But That's what I was
Oh,
thinking
well,
about.
that's what's crazy about AI mode, because AI mode's going to be getting that information.
Yes, so it'll know what you tick. It'll learn quite quickly that you once 3 years ago looked for something about spaghetti bolognese. It's weird because I was a guest on Yoast's SEO update with Jono, and I was talking about the difficulty of AI produced content. Like if I look for spaghetti bolognese recipe, at the time I was saying, well, I like to go to 5 different sources, figuring out what's suited for me, and then I'll decide. Don't you tell me how to make spaghetti bolognese based on synthesized answers from those 5 sources and assuming. How do you know that I don't like tomato, for example? You need to think of some other creative way to give me bolognese without tomato. And it'll know those things, but it'll remember it, right? Forever. I don't like tomato. So whenever I look for a pizza, give me a white pizza, not a red pizza, for example. And that's it. It goes in forever. And that's part of you as a person. And that's maybe where OpenAI are going with IO and this third core device that they're talking about. Maybe it's to collect data, not just where we are and where
With
we
Johnny
live.
Ive, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what are they up to? Because it's all about psychology and the humans interacting with and coexisting with these machines that help you out and assist you in everyday life. So if it's listening to you and everything you're doing, it'll understand when you're sad, when you're happy, why. What's the context?
The thing that I always think is like, how much can it actually remember? Because so I have, I just journal everything. I keep documentation of everything in my life, and I can't even. I really have like my life backed up. I can't even give a fraction of that to ChatGPT to learn from. It just
That's
it just
that's the
yeah.
problem, isn't it? That's the problem is aggregating the data which ChatGPT just don't have right now, which
And
Google
that's
has.
why they need to go. That's why I need to go in podcasts and say, yeah, AGI by 2030, give us more money because we're going to
Exactly.
create AGI. But I don't think they're going to create AGI. I just think they're going to make better, slightly better assistants. I don't really know how much better it can get. I really wonder how much better. I mean, look, VO3 is crazy.
It
But
is, but let's chat in a year and we'll be talking.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
like us comparing us to talking about how Star Wars effects in the 70s were amazing for their time, but you look at it and you're like, nah, it's a film from the 70s. And then you look at Independence Day and you think that was good at the time. And now you
I
look
guess
at
what I'm
it.
trying to say is what I'm trying to say is how many, especially when it comes to text, how many hallucinations or what percentage of hallucinations will be reduced to the point where you don't need to double check an answer from
Well,
an AI.
Well, it was interesting you said memory before and how much does it remember? And I think that it should be phrased differently. I think it's logging everything, but it's just not accessing whatever it's logging as a
Absolutely.
memory, right? But it's logging it and it's collecting the context even now. And even this podcast right now, there'll probably be some knowledge graph, if you want to call it that, somewhere that will pick up that it's us too, and then it'll be able to take the transcript of this and understand again what made us more vibrant during certain part of the podcast, or what we may have had more difficulty debating easier than another, and it'll be able to take that and add it to some other memory. It's going to be all compiling and compiling. It's just
I
what
guess
to access.
it could be a series of AI agents, and so you have like individual data points, and data point goes to this agent, data point goes to this agent, data point goes to this agent. So that way you don't have one AI that is actually responsible for going through all the data. It makes it more manageable, and it's siloed into different agents who feeds it up the chain,
Well, you're kind of describing an MCP right now, aren't you?
I suppose.
That kind of it's like a USB-C stick, you know. I was in the talk in Zagreb last week for the SEO summit, and I compared for the first time in a talk ever. I've compared something I was talking to the Matrix, and I said MCP servers is like putting in a USB in AI form and learning when Trinity needed to go on the helicopter and needed to learn how to operate the helicopter she was about to go into, and that is, you know, her connecting to an MCP server essentially, and that person on the ship in Matrix just plugging in an MCP server, and now you know everything about the helicopter, or all helicopters, in fact. You know, it's and just plugging that in and then applying it to something else. It just happens all the time, and that's what I think the democratization of these agents will be the democratization of servers as well. Like the new API and it'll just be much easier. You won't need a dev to connect to them as much or as reliant, as APIs are all different languages and different setups and what have you, and connecting them all together. MCP kind of takes that problem away.
I didn't plan on going down this rabbit hole, but are you doing any interesting automations?
Um, a couple, but nothing at scale because it's all happening so fast and the servers are getting more sophisticated that I'm just kind of messing around with small stuff as I've always done. I like just doing something manageable instead of trying to create some huge thing because that's, other people are going to be doing
Okay,
that
so
stuff as well.
I think a better question are what are some automations you've done that have worked that you still use, and then what are some that you had high hopes for but that were just like the technology is not there yet?
Some big data it can get wrong. I know that. But the smaller data, I like aggregating different bits. So before I was using this kind of automation, I just kind of got raw Excel exports of, keyword volume, rankings, that kind of stuff. And then I would form them in a master worksheet on my spreadsheet. And that would be me for like 3 days figuring out the right formulas and conditions to get this one spreadsheet. Someone could go, huh, let's do that. But now I can say, here's 5 Excel spreadsheets, and this is what I want you to do with it. And it spits out and responds with a unique answer per client, based on what it's looking at, and adds context because it knows now everything. It's not just data. It's not just a 1 or 2 dimensional thing. It's now 3 dimensional in the way that it can interpret all of this data for you and help you interpret it better and do something about it.
You're double checking the work too.
Yeah. Well, the smaller one's easier to do, and then you get confident, and then you work with a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, or you work with like one of your own side things, for test data or personal sites, just normal things that you can still do something easily with, and then you test it out on a small client, see if it works, and if it does, you go to a bigger client.
So this is an AI workflow that tells you what keywords to pursue.
Yeah. And now and you can use this. It's quite easy. There's, I think Richard Baxter did a post about sorting out an MCP with Search Console, and Claude. So you open Claude up, and it's all easy to do. It takes 5 minutes, free of charge, and it's just an MCP. You can then ask questions instead of having an API going. I need row from these 2 like you can say, oh, well, can you compare to these 2 dates? What's interesting about them? So it takes the data.
Break this down for people who don't know what this is.
What, an MCP or an MCP for Search Console? An MCP is think about it as a set of data or information or knowledge on its own, on a unique independent server, call it, that you can use as a source additional to an AI agent that you're using. So for example, if you use Claude and you just hit open, you're just using Claude's AI server and what it can do. But if you were to then plug in Search Console MCP, you can then give access to clienta.com through the MCP, and then you can start asking it questions using the fact that it's an AI agent, and you can ask normal questions, but it now has access to data instead of you browsing inside Search Console, getting what you need, uploading it, going to Claude, going, here's some data, can you give me some insight? You can now ask even more questions as though it has control of Search Console, and it'll find you things and give you actionable points back. So again, it's like prompting Search Console. If Search Console was an agent, what would you ask it? And that's what you use, and then you can plug in, say, a second source of data of whatever you want. You can you can build your own MCP with your own databases with all your clients if you want to. You could even upload then Screaming Frog, which haven't got an MCP as I'm aware, but if they did, they would be able to use.
No, but Screaming Frog can connect to Search Console.
Yes, so then you've got aggregated data. So then maybe use it for SEMrush, export something in SEMrush, and then you can add this to it as well. So, and then you can really ask it questions as though it's your SEO assistant, really. And it's free. Just try it out. So I think Google Search Console have made their own. WordPress have got their own, so you can do stuff with WordPress as well. And they all have their own different abilities. But it's like taking the APIs that they can all do, but you can converse with the API rather than just direct it through some SQL function or something.
So you have so you have this AI workflow that finds keywords, tells you which keywords to pursue. And it has saved you time from looking through lists of keywords yourself to figure out which ones to pursue.
Pretty much, yeah. So it might. So if I as a technical SEO, I'll also be looking at this data as well, right? As I have been all of these years. So I might
Also,
ask it a question.
how is it deciding which keywords are better than other keywords? Is it looking at the SERPs as well?
No, it's not.
It's
Well,
not going so it's not going into pages because
unless you feed it. Unless you
that's
feed
something
it.
yeah, because that's something if you're actually choosing which keywords to go after, that's a huge part
Oh yeah,
of deciding is looking at the SERPs, at the search engine results pages.
exactly. So you can use rank trackers and you can use, keyword search volume and everything that you can have with third-party tools. But soon they're all going to be making it easier for you to connect to your own thing and plug it into Claude. And then you'll be able to get your SEMrush account. And then you'll go, right, here's client A, get that project, go to Search Console, go to Bing Webmaster Tools, go everywhere that you need to, come back, and let's have a chat about, about what I can do based on here's a strategy I've given them from month one. Now, where am I? Where's my progress from the KPIs using what you know? So it's very clever.
Do you think right now the AI tools that you use are capable of handling data like that, or do you think we still need some time before
Um,
there are a reliably low amount of hallucinations?
well, I just assume that it's hallucinating all the time, so I fact check
Yeah,
it with things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
plus you've got to use your own ingenuity and skill, right? So what it's not like if you compare it to scaling content, it's I'm not doing the SEO's version of just clicking a button saying here's a keyword, make a thousand word post. I'm not doing that in technical terms. I'm not just getting the data and going here's copy and paste and here it is to the client. I'll take it and it'll be some input from maybe I would consider it a junior entrant employee who's been having a mess around. And at the moment, that's what these agents are, or AI in general. They're not even out of their nappies yet.
I honestly think I'm super jaded. It's because I was pretty early in crypto and blockchain. So I ran the biggest blockchain meetup in the world. Me and my friends, we made the first play to earn game. We made the first video game in crypto. I've seen so many. I was there when ICOs were the thing,
Yeah.
and then there was crypto winter, and then it was NFTs, and then it was meme coins, and I've seen these crazy hype cycles with such wild amounts of irrationality. And this is what I'm seeing right now in AI. And I'm not saying that AI, like, all I'm saying is this is what I'm trying to say. I think there are people who spend a lot of work on AI agents that they just waste I think that most
Yes.
people are spending time making AI workflows and AI agents where they would save way more time if they did it themselves, and the automations don't even work very well, and it's actually hurting them more than it's helping them. And I'm not saying we're not going to get there eventually. I am saying that I believe that the hype for AI agents, it's cool, it's great. I don't think it's there yet. And I want to add, I literally had somebody with an AI automation company pitch me to come on this podcast. And I'm like, what are you doing with AI agents and workflows? What do you want to talk about? And he's like, I actually want to say how most companies don't need AI agents and workflows because everyone thinks that they need it and we're just not there yet. But when you do find a good use case, then it's very powerful. Okay,
It's
I'm done with my rant.
no, no, no.
End
That's really
slash.
interesting. That is really interesting. There's two things I got from that. Well, the first thing was I've, when you're just doom scrolling and you see a few videos, and I saw some interview on the Diary of a CEO with someone who was basically saying that AI can be comparable to splitting the atom, right? That's how important AI is. And then I saw someone else on LinkedIn going, I don't work in technology, right? And I don't work in AI or any of this, but this is all I see in my feed. I'm telling you from someone who doesn't use it as a normal person, it's just a tool, right? Everyone needs to calm down because it's not as important as splitting the atom. And it's very weird how polarized those two views are. Some people are saying it's just an add-on to the internet, and other people are saying this is going to change the course of human history. And it's very weird that. The other thing to add is that I was not around for the early days of crypto, but I was in the middle of the NFT craze, and I had an NFT marketing company, and I saw what you described, this Wild West, but it's different. It's different because that was Web3. It was unregulated, full of bad actors who were capitalizing internally but caring externally. And it was all about community. But where was community day after minting? Like it was all weird, and everyone did this rug pulling and just capitalizing off stuff, and it was very weird to watch. And because of that, a bubble burst, and no one could trust it because it was led by this echo chamber of dishonesty. Whereas here, there is no echo chamber as such because it's everyone's going to be using it. It was really funny seeing some of the NFT folks jumping onto it.
I think there's a crazy echo chamber, and I literally think AI company CEOs are they don't believe. I don't think they believe that we're on the current path to AGI with this technology. I think they say the grandest statements. Not I think this is what you're supposed to do. They say the grandest, most forward-looking statements that they can to get more funding, and they need more funding. It's super competitive. They need that funding, and so then that fuels these people on X who then like say these crazy things, and then these threads go viral, and then the hype cycle continues. Am I saying that VO3 isn't impressive as F? It's super impressive. VO3 is crazy. It's great. I've been watching all these ASMR VO3 videos where they cut these things, and like that's amazing. That's great. I'm not surprised that we're there with VO3, but I think a lot of people are spinning their wheels trying to do stuff with AI, and it's important. That's how progress is made.
Yeah.
But it's also like, yeah.
I don't like if you're not into AI right now, you're falling behind messaging. Like, that's what I don't like, because people don't need to get into AI. But I do have different concerns. Like, I know that a bunch of SEOs are like, oh, my job's in danger. What am I going to do? Because things are changing. Like, don't worry, because we're already at the forefront and have a lot of knowledge and experience about how search works in general, and that will go beyond the native SERP. But I think about accountants, lawyers, where you're paying for a human service for knowledge that will be engulfed online. And when I say online, I mean within LLMs.
Absolutely, but I also think it's gonna. I think it's gonna make. I think it's gonna make. It's just gonna make the jobs of these people easier.
Easy, well, harder to enter, right? I think it's gonna be. Maybe there'll be less lawyers, but those lawyers are going to be of higher quality and efficiency, and you'll get more for your money.
It's also,
in that theory, things will get cheaper, right?
Look, as an experienced SEO, we're both experienced SEOs. If you ask ChatGPT for SEO advice, the advice that it gives you is, I mean, it's the most generic, non-needle moving advice. Its advice is do blog SEO and use schema, and that's its advice. And I mean, there's like a million articles written about how schema actually doesn't make you rank. That was I made a list of like SEO myths yesterday. I read this like viral SEO myth thread from the search engine optimization subreddit, and they're like, yeah, schema makes you rank. That's an SEO myth. But ChatGPT will give you bad advice.
Yes.
And then imagine an agent. Imagine you build an agent, and the agent is operating off that bad advice. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, because you have to have specialists who fact check that knowledge, because otherwise they may do the wrong thing. I did a test like SEO 101. What's like 10 things that you would tell them, and it did some really inane stuff. But then I replied going, you missed canonicalization out, and it went, that's a really good point, and it makes you realize it's a yes man. It's a yes machine.
What's your 10 SEO? What is your personal? Yeah, I'll make it easier. Instead of 10, let's do your top 3 SEO things that every new SMB, you're the SMB guy, that every SMB should do. Top 3 SEO things.
If you've gone on to staging onto production, make sure you're not no indexed. That's a big mistake. Some people don't realize that for months if they don't have an SEO on board. What else? Canonicalization.
So I would for the people who don't know what that means that your staging site is using the tag no index. So that way your staging site is not indexed by Google. And then you put it into production. Now it's live, and you left on that no index tag. So your production site is also getting no index. you need to remove that. That's what that means. You need to
Yes.
actually say index follow.
Yes, yes. Well, there's that, and also robots.txt, which is usually at the root of your domain that you also might have been turned to do not crawl this site because we're in production. Please ignore it. Canonicalization, which is kind of the same, not the same, but here a good mistake is you move from production, you move from staging to production, and you don't change your canonical URL from
All right, so
staging
actually,
to
I want to
production.
ask you. That was actually, I think that was actually on the list of these SEO myths as things that aren't as important as they used to be. Why do you feel that that is, or what evidence have you seen that leads you to believe this is as important? This is number two on the most important things that SMBs should do.
Well, it depends how new it is because I did do that quite a bit ago and it did have an effect on a site that I was working with. And I knew the next day and you revert it and everything is fine. It takes about a week to come back, usually a couple of days. But that was a small site where you could afford to not be online for a couple of days over a weekend, right? So I would say it's not a rule. It's not dictation. It's like you're
Best
asking.
practice.
Yeah, and still anything that's best practice, I always say do it. And no one has said don't use canonicalization. And whilst it's not always working for I don't want this version to rank, it definitely helps with things like very product variants, which can be a huge mess on a large scale ecom site. If you don't use it right, so that would be one. Well, number two, number three. Number three, I would say it sounds weird, but like optimize your images. Like it sounds so. Oh, well, that's a 101. But yes, it is 101. And you wouldn't believe how many sites, big companies, where you go on the homepage and there's a 1.8 megabyte image that's been condensed to 400 pixels to make sure it looks okay on a mobile. And you're like, why are you doing that? Compress that stuff. And there's a lot of stuff like images and video embeds.
Use
Like,
WebPs, use alt text,
yeah,
use keywords. Use sometimes. I mean, put the keyword in your page title and then use the page title as your file name. Yeah.
yeah. And be concise. That's more of an LLM thing to interpret who you are. Be concise because it's like those. Have you ever been on those websites? And they do it with startups in Silicon Valley type thing where they go about us or what we do. And I'm reading 100 words in.
Wait,
I'm
be
like,
be concise with the alt text or be
no,
concise with
with
your
content.
text. Oh,
With
sure,
with
sure.
text and
Absolutely.
alt text.
Absolutely.
You know those about pages and like this. What do you do when you go on the what we do and you're reading and 30 seconds later, I'm like, I still don't know what you do. You've got all of these fluffy words about how we're innovative and like, oh, we're at the forefront. I'm like, what are you at the forefront of? Like now, LLMs don't want all of the fluffiness that the human likes. The LLM just wants something without emotion. We sell web design like that. Done. That kind of thing. Just be concise. Don't just be too short, but don't be too long. Again, it depends. But you have to think about the LLM now because
Well,
it
you have
is
to
reading
you have
it.
to sell with the benefits first, and then you say how you do it.
Yeah, yeah. But if you go too off piste, it's
Yeah.
gonna be like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that all the time on the show. I think the fluff in SEO, that was a trend that used to exist. I'll actually believe one of the reasons, it's not the entire reason, it's one of them, that Google is turbocharging user-generated content now is because it's faster, it's concise, it's easier for people to consume. A Reddit comment, super fast. A TikTok, super fast. An X post, super fast. I'm like, I say a million billion times on the show, give searchers what they're looking for above the fold.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's why videos work because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and then you've got 24 frames. And a second. You can work with a lot in video, and also note that these LLMs are going to get really efficient to understand what's in the video. They'll be able to read, the words that are coming up and popping up that happen. They can understand it. They can translate it into different languages. They can change aspects of the video itself, so you can make lots of different variations and put them to different channels. There's so much amplification that you can do, and it can understand more in context. Isn't it Facebook that released you can make your own ads now, all in AI, and it understands based on what you're doing so soon? Again.
Well, funny enough, I'm having a really expert PPC person on the show in a few weeks, and I was asking him about this just over WhatsApp, and I'm like, what do you think of Icon, or what do you think of these tools that make your ads for you using AI. And he's like, it is a great way to waste your ad spend. It is a great way to burn through your budget. That is what he told me.
Yeah. Now, and
So
remember how they're designed, right? If the cynic in me likes to think that if I was involved with paid media inside Meta, I would have logic in there to ensure that whilst you give them the data, make sure there's some sort of manipulation into an upsell or a cross sell, or maybe something isn't efficient as you need to make out, so you concentrate on something which costs more. There's all of that, and then learn from it. It's we don't know what's under the scene of the actual LLM when it's suggesting things to us. You just like to hope and give trust in those machines that they're giving you something objective and honest. But
it is
these
possible.
ad platforms,
It is possible. I should have pushed this PPC person, because it is possible that like getting all of that data on what works and what doesn't, it might burn through a ton of budget, but eventually then it might actually get crazy efficient and good with enough data.
oh, 100%.
But the question is, how much budget will it take to get there?
Yeah, and I feel like and you said you were talking about schema before and structured data and ranking, and I've got the thoughts of, well, I would like to still spoon feed these LLMs because they're lazy and they want to save money, right?
Well, my question is, that's true, but also like here's the thing, if you give a YouTube transcript with the timestamps in it to ChatGPT, it'll do a great job of understanding it. If something that I very frequently do is I will just copy everything on a page, including the heading navigation, including the footer, and it'll be complicated pages with tons of ads, a crazy long footer, the things in between the text, and I'll give it to ChatGPT and I'll just say, be concise, explain this for me, like break it down, and it'll still do a decent job.
That's a big spoon you just gave it, though. Like, that's a lot of work to give it just to figure something out. And like you were saying before, isn't it quicker at that point just figure it out than?
Oh no, it's faster to copy everything and just say, like, explain this to me in 5 bullet points.
Oh, and then it's done. That stuff, the assistance, yeah, I mean, it's definitely helping you, right? And it is going to get better and faster. But I do wonder how much it's just taking in and how much processing power it's doing for all of these things, and how better it's going to get.
Because it's pretty easy to look at the HTML and figure out what the navigation is and what the footer is and what the ads are and what the main content is.
Yeah, and I guess that's a bit like LLMs.txt, right? We've got that now as part of Yoast's feature set in free, and I compare that to, if you're looking to buy a new house, then LLMs.txt is essentially your first viewing. When you go round, you have a quick look through the house. You're in and
so
out in
actually,
20 minutes.
I want to ask you how. Okay, so you did you write the LLM? By the way, I made a video, a social video on LLMs.txt, and I think the video is up to like 125,000 views now, and I put it out on, and I was showing pictures of the Yoast article.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't write the post. I didn't write the post itself, but
you wrote about it on Search Engine Land too, I think.
Yes. Myself and Carolyn, talking about different elements of it, but it's something that I've found useful. And whilst it's not mass adopted, it's being used by companies I respect as a good source of reference. And so for example, Stripe and Anthropic use it to teach other LLMs, whilst Anthropic doesn't use it for their own main agent, which is weird. They still, obviously, it's a thing that's being recognized. And like I was saying, it's like a first look through a house. You go through the house, you're in and out within half an hour, and you know how big the kitchen is, but maybe you didn't clock how many hobs are on the stove, or what the make of the oven is, for example. That's something you do on your second visit, where you start to ask questions. Move the couch from behind the wall to see if there's a crack in it. That's you visiting the website properly at that point, or asking more questions in an assistance engine. But I still think people are still going to want to explore as well as get assisted. Whilst people are getting lazy and they do like the ChatGPT, there's still something, not that they don't like change of technology, but it's changing the way you behave to search. Like, we like to find those answers out. If I use that spaghetti bolognese example beforehand, I still don't think I would just ask ChatGPT for a recipe and just take the first one that it does. as gospel. I'm going to want to research into it and not just
You
get
know,
assistance with
the other thing that's interesting is everyone needs different contextual data because actually, so I said, I gave this article to ChatGPT. I said summarize it in 5 bullet points, and it did a great job summarizing it. But actually, when I read through the article myself, I got a bunch of different things out of the article that was irrelevant to the actual article, but it was really needle moving for me. And I only got that through reading it, even though ChatGPT did a pretty good job of breaking it down. Can you explain for people what LLMs.txt is and why it's do you believe it's groundbreaking, or are you just like, okay, it's another thing, we'll see if it catches on?
I want to, if it is a thing that catches, I mean, it's had some skepticism from other SEOs, like it can be abused, blah blah blah. You can tell it what you want, but can't you do that on your normal website anyway? And my thoughts on it is, whilst it's not mass adoption, if it has some adoption, I want Yoast at least to be around for something that can, if something's adopting
Yeah.
something to get discoverable, then that's part of the product and what the product should be doing. And whether it's attracting a human or a crawler or whatever through native search and adding schema or whatever, this is just another thing to find a way that's discoverable. But it's a file like robots.txt. It's a physical, or it's a txt file that runs just after whatever.com forward
Yo,
slash
can I tell you
LLMs.
what's so okay, so I got to tell you this. So, I mean, it's supposed to be concise, right? The robots.txt, it's supposed to be concise. It gives the most important pages, a quick
Yeah.
about from the company. So, when I was covering LLMs.txt, I there are two things. First of all, when I hear about some big thing in SEO, I'm looking at who's adopting it. So I look through the biggest content marketing sites and SEO sites. I looked at Moz, SEMrush, Ahrefs, HubSpot, Backlink Go, all of these to see if they had LLMs.txt. No one had adopted it. None of them had an LLMs.txt. However, Search Engine Land put out. I don't think it was you. I think it was somebody else who put out this article. LLMs.txt is a treasure map for. I don't know if you read it. It's a treasure map. Was that you, or was that
Well,
somebody
I
else?
don't know if it wasn't me. That one wasn't
Okay.
me. It might have been Carolyn, but I remember
Okay.
seeing the title and going, thumbs up from me.
So then I wanted to see if Search Engine Land had an LLMs.txt, and they did. But let me tell you what was so crazy. Their LLMs.txt was 96,500 words.
Yeah. Well, you can put in as much as you want if you really want to.
But
And
isn't it
you,
supposed to be concise? Isn't it supposed to make it easy?
well, you define concise. It's a big site, and it depends what you want to provide. Again, if you're doing the first viewing of a house and you're the one trying to sell it, like you're putting all the nice stuff up front, but some people may put a bit too much nice stuff around and it may be a bit overloading for the person viewing the site. But for an LLM, it has everything. But to me, there's definitely a line where it goes from this is this is a nice guide as to what is covered around the site as a whole to this is basically a glorified XML sitemap, which is what as when we were designing the product didn't want to go into that. We wanted to keep it, not a one pager, but kind of like a one pager.
How does Yoast figure out which URLs to include in the LLMs.txt?
A few conditions and assumptions. I know it does stuff like it takes some recent posts with some conditions, like it doesn't look for Hello World, it doesn't look for anything that's maybe a year old. If there's a post every day, then it will understand that and get some logic behind it. Chooses cornerstone content that you select, and you can choose pages to include as well. But we didn't want to take any assumptions. Like we could have had a look at the menu, what's in the navigation menu, like you were saying before. That's a good reference to a site's general structure.
Or you
But
could have,
some
or like interlinked which blog posts are interlinked to the most.
exactly. So on our yoast.com/llms.txt, we curated that manually. So that's not our plugin, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time to give a bit more detail because it has stuff outside of the WordPress install. Um, so you can be, if you really want to make a lot of effort, just make one and upload it yourself via your IT person, or if you're directly involved with it, you can just upload it to your server.
So okay, I want to switch it. I want to switch it up a little bit. I have a lot of like legacy SEOs who listen to this podcast. What do you think some big mistakes that people who have been in the SEO game for a really long time, like yourself, things that used to work but that don't ever work, that don't work anymore and probably won't ever again, and older SEOs, they keep doing them because they used to work. What are some of these things?
Link building. That was easy for me. Like link building. Oh, links are the most important thing. Yeah, they are now, but are they in 5 years? Like, I don't think they are, because this is about back to word of mouth. Like, word of mouth is better, is just as important as, say, a leaflet. And whilst you've got something physical, I'm thinking pre-internet, how marketing got about. Yeah, you had these different channels, but word of mouth and, like you say, user-generated content, third-party perspectives is really important. But the need to link with a certain word inside a certain context is no longer something we need to direct. It's something that it'll figure out. I wouldn't be as surprised that even some of these agents told us how best to optimize for it soon, because it wants to be transparent. Unlike, like Google's got the secret sauce and all of these variations that they don't quite tell you, and then they'll make an update. These LLMs might work completely different and give you really good advance notice on what you're doing wrong, why, whether it should consider a punishment or a penalty or something like that, like it was doing manually or algorithmically. It'll all be cleverer to do that, and I think it'll direct us to do better, which is less spam on the internet, which is
Well,
kind
do you
of
mean
what
better with informational content?
I think it'll just ask us what to. I think it'll understand if you're a business selling a service or a product. It'll take the context of what it knows about how to be discovered in general, like an SEO consultant, right? But in its own little ecosystem. So Claude might have its own best practice soon that isn't just made by humans, but also made by agents and directed by agents, and they might make their own resources. They may make their own there isn't a search console for any of these platforms, is there? OpenAI doesn't have an insights area where you can figure out how much your brand's being brought up, because no one's figured out how to report on that yet. It's when they figure that stuff out.
Google Search Console is adding that.
Yeah, but like, is it going to be good? And how long is it going to be there? And isn't
Right.
it didn't in the CEO just had an interview with Lex Friedman, and he was basically implying that AIO is just a segue into AI mode anyway, and that in 2
Yes.
years everything's going to be AI mode. And
Well, he
I
didn't. He didn't give a timeline. I don't think he gave a timeline.
did he?
I don't think he said. I don't think he said 2 years. I looked at that very closely because I'm like, okay, this is a very important
I
interview.
need to watch it again. But did he say eventually? He said eventually, which in my
I
head's
don't
2
think
to 3
he's.
years.
I don't think he's. I think he said. He's like. I think he said. We're moving there, but to me it sounded very wishy-washy. Because I don't think Google would make AI mode the default. I don't think Google will make the AI mode the default for the same reason that I said earlier, is I don't believe enough hallucinations will be reduced. And the thing about AI mode is it gives you answers very confidently. It gives you the hallucinations very confidently. And a lot of people aren't smart enough to distinguish between hallucination and fact. And so there's a lot of people will take these hallucinations, and I think it'll just, I think there's a lot of people, I don't know. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think they will incorporate more AI elements. In fact, Google is now doing audio overviews.
Yes.
And actually that's something that I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you, because so I was at iProspect under Dentsu Aegis it was in 2017. And back in 2017, like the hot thing in SEO was voice search. Everyone was talking about optimizing for voice search, and that was way before its time. And
I remember.
and so,
I remember the graph that someone was giving, going, this time in 18 months' time, it'll have overtaken thumb keyboard based text-based searches, and it didn't quite happen. But it's because it was stupid then, the technology. It was AI, but it wasn't what I would define as AI. It wasn't a conversational thing. It was, you couldn't, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a little bit better, but you can't, I'm looking at the Alexa, for example, and you can't do anything more than your basic commands, really. It can't really connect to everything, and if you do, you have to really, like API work, you have to really configure everything to the minutest granular detail just to get it to work right. And soon it won't need that because it'll be able to hopefully assist you with all those things. But voice search, I do think, will have its time. It will overtake, but it'll be for another 10 years. It's when the kids now, it's the kids growing up now. If they don't type and they're still typing, but it's when they stop typing, you have to put a timer on that for a good 10 years before it becomes actual overtaking.
I mean, I love ChatGPT voice mode. I literally have the action button on my iPhone to ChatGPT voice. It's one of the biggest game changers in life. And you have like a simple question. And I got L-theanine the other day. Incredible. Like L-theanine is just wild. I have it with my coffee. It's so good. And I was asking ChatGPT all these questions about L-theanine, and I just use the action button. It brings it up, and then you ask these questions. It's so easy. But I also wonder, like, do you think there are actually ways to optimize for voice search?
Not that I've not that I've seen. I remember reading all of the stuff when there was the first hype of voice search, but if you read all the blogs, it was like, do what you're doing already, just be like concise and detailed without being too over detailed. It'll take what it needs to take from a quote or a segment of your content and bring it out as part of as part of the voice response if it wants to. I wouldn't say there's anything special to do for voice that you're not again already doing through other methods.
Voice search is going to have even lower click-through rates because at least when you see an AI overview or when you're asking ChatGPT something, sometimes it will actually give the source material.
Yeah.
But voice never does that.
No, and it just gives you the answer. I don't know.
Just
Do you
gives
remember?
you the answer.
Do you remember the film Starship Troopers? The old one.
I
It
know,
must have been
sir.
late
I haven't
90s.
seen it in a long time.
Right in the middle, there were all these like fake educational videos, and at the end of them, they had this segment, and it would explain the context of what's happening in the film, and then at the end, it goes, "Would you like to know more?" And it was just part of the thing of the theme of the VT, but there was always someone at the end saying, "Would you like to know more?" And here they don't do that, and you would want to. It's up to us to say, "Can I know more?" And it's the way the conversation is going to be, not just here's your answer and then you continue, ask another question. It'll be when it's actual conversational and it says, would you like to know more, by default, and has that interest based on what you're asking and answering in its response. That when that happens and it becomes a bit her, and it might, but I did watch the trailer for her again recently, and I don't think, even now looking at it, I don't think an LLM would behave in the way that it did in her. Because have you seen her?
I
film?
saw her, but her was, I think I saw it. I saw it like the year that it came out, so it's
Same. So I just watched
Yeah.
it that once when it first came out, and then I just watched the trailer. It was funny because within a week or something in the timeline, it jogs your memory of the film. It started saying, "What's it like to be married?" And now I'm thinking, an LLM would never ask that nonsense. It doesn't need to
actually,
know.
so funny enough, ChatGPT voice mode does ask a question at the end of every. That's not true. I would say like maybe 50% of its answers to you, it'll follow up with a question, and it's always listening. It doesn't actually stop until you stop it. And you could say shut up, don't say anything, and then it will say, okay, I'm shutting up, and then you say, no, I said don't say anything. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. And yeah,
So it doesn't understand our short fuses as well as humans.
No,
So it doesn't know
it
what makes
doesn't-
you tick. You could have lost it that day because of that.
They could have lost it because no, it's generally an amazing tool. But I think trying to optimize. Actually, you know what? I will say this: the way to optimize for voice search is to go after bottom of funnel keywords, to go after purchase intent. That's the way. First of all, a lot of SEOs don't know this. I just believe it's always been better than informational SEO, because most purchase intent keywords are crazy under targeted because they have lower volume. They have lower search
Yeah.
volume. And a lot of SEOs, they want to go after the sexy keywords. They want to go after the keywords that have the most volume. That's informational keywords.
Are they sexy though? That's, to me, they're vanity terms. Like the short tail's over. That may be the second answer. You know, when I said link building before, just vanity metrics are just gonna not have value anymore. And they didn't they did in the first place, but they didn't have as much value as, like you're saying, the long tail with the higher quality intent, and they're further down a funnel. And yeah, any content that makes you want to read that answer and ask for more information, or ooh, I might like to purchase that thing. That'll be the key. But again, it's hard to do because the LLM might figure out that incentive's trying to be put in the content and answer the question as well without you wanting to know more or needing to know more. That's the danger, and you don't know how far it's going to go for that answer because you don't know what the initial chat is for it to form and synthesize the response. It's going to be
Well,
a
that's why
cat
it's
and mouse
important to have
game.
extensive documentation on why your products and services are good and what they're good for.
Yeah, and be detailed not just in text but in other forms of media, like not just video, but products and imagery are so important. Products, imagery, and soon again it will be well, you can see it already understands a photo and what's in it. So it's going to be able to take that from a chat. You know, I don't know, yellow trainers, for example, can just be something that you talk about in a chat response, and if you sell them, you want to be able to get ahead of Nike or whoever to try and get out there because of some unique selling proposition of that product.
I have a fun question for you. What uh, what are some of the most common black hat SEO tactics that you see today that still
See
work?
today.
Yeah, black hat SEO.
Scaled content. Scaled
Hmm.
content and still burn and churn domains. You know, it's easier to start from negative, from zero and get a negative and just leave it and do it again and again. You know, the higher the competition in a SERP, the more there's ability to have black hat. But yeah, scaled content and scaled AI generated content at the moment seems to be the thing that, again, I don't know why that's being done at such a rate, because you know, if they're not figuring it out now, they'll figure it out in a year, and I wouldn't trust it with my brand if it was my baby.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that you said that, because that's one of these things that's super sexy in SEO that I personally think is very risky. Like, there have been people who have reported all their properties on Google Search Console getting penalized, even ones not using AI. Even ones not using AI, just because like this is so risky. And it's pretty easy to identify, but Google hasn't done a great job identifying it. That doesn't mean that they won't. I think if you're building a property for the long term, it's a completely unnecessary risk.
Yes, unless someone finds a loophole. But again, these machines will fill that gap so quickly, and they'll go hard on ones that they know are intentionally trying to abuse it in the first place. I believe that an LLM can probably figure out, let's say, for example, a domain all of a sudden got 100,000 links overnight. It will be able to figure out very quickly whether that was natural or not. And if it was
Well,
natural, why?
when you brought up link building before, so I had on a Moz executive, and we were talking about this, and it's like, if you're trying to do link building, but you're doing link building and you're not actually increasing how many branded searches you're getting, Google's going to know that you are just doing manipulative link building.
Yeah,
Like, there are so many other signals that go into it.
yeah, because again, it goes to word of mouth. Pre-internet, I'm not going to talk to you about some new shoe brand and describe everything about it without telling you the make and the brand name. Why would I do? That's unnatural, isn't it? Got to check out these new white trainers I've just bought. Great sole, perfect fit, and you're like, who are they? I'm not telling you that. Just it's in there. Like, it sounds dicey. It does sound dicey. And again, the LLM will figure that stuff out and may give you a penalty that you can't control or appeal against, or, you know, it's going to be interesting to see when it calls the shots on how it perceives information that's being fed to it.
I will say though, like the most incredible, the things that made me go, wow, holy crap, in SEO, the things that I have seen in the past few years, it has been scaled content abuse.
Yes.
That and parasite SEO. Those are the two things that I've seen that like you can use your brand and video to get 3 or maybe all of the top spots for a keyword, like 4 at like 3 or 4 of the top spots for a keyword just with short form video. And you make these videos in 5 minutes.
Yep.
To me, that's insane.
And there's a lot of tools that do it quite well as well. I forgot the name. I'm starting to see it in ads all the time. I don't want to say.
Well, you don't even need to use any special tools, because I've made over 3,000 videos now. You just take your keyword, you put it at the beginning of the video description, beginning of the video title field.
Yeah, no, I meant the shorts. Like you can take, say, for example, this podcast, which is over an hour long now, and you can just
it clips it up.
Yeah, and it'll know which parts are the important at the moment. If you're doing clips, you have to go through this whole hour, don't you, and figure out which are the good parts. But soon it'll say these are the good parts. And
well, I can't wait for that, because right now it is very bad at it, and I've tried doing that. Like, believe me, as somebody who puts out content every day, I wish it was great at that. Also, something that really annoys me is when I see friends shilling these tools that don't work. And I know this because I try them like every week, because I really want one that will work. It'll save me a ton of time and increase my output. And none of them make good clips. It's like embarrassing stuff that will really hurt my brand. I would not put that out. And I wish, I am going to go through this interview and find great clips that I'll be able to use. But yeah, it's not there yet. It'd be great if even when I take the transcript and I give the transcript to GPT-4o or O3, it still does not give me good things. I'm still disappointed.
No, it's not there yet. It will be soon.
I hope so. But the thing that has made me, the things that are crazy, I think, is the AI skill content and Parasite. I want to ask you, I guess before we go, because I'm sure you need to go back to work, but I guess like in the last year or two, has there been anything recently that, if you've been in the game for such a long time, has there been anything recent that's made you go, oh wow, that is crazy?
Only the existence of MCPs, to be honest. Like, out of everything's like, I was saying a year ago that AI in the next year is going to be this Wild West and the dust isn't going to settle for a little bit, and I feel like we're in the middle of it now. But we're all still trying to figure stuff out. And you were saying before about people are spending too much time trying to build stuff. And when it comes to, say, Apple, I never get version 1 of anything. You wait till version 3, because version 1 and 2 are a bunch of brand ambassadors, if you want to call them that, and, brand loyalists who'll buy it. And they're essentially beta testers, and then the proper one comes out a couple of years later after all that's been collected. That's what's happening now. I feel like we're at the end of V1. We're about to go into a V2, which will last another 18 to 24 months, and then in 2 years' time, there'll be more of a. It'll be more clear what's happened in these 2 years where we're figuring stuff out. I think
if you have a breakthrough with it, I hope, please, you have an open invite back to the show. I hope you'll come on and talk about it, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Like, I did this. This is crazy. Everyone needs to try this. Like, I would love that. Like, that would be, yeah.
And there may be quite a few people who do that, right? Who have their own thing. I think that's what's going to be the interesting, unpredictable thing. Someone's going to make something really cool that everyone else is like, wow, that's so simple and genius, and now it can make something so much easier.
Well, that's the thing. I get pitched this so often for people who want to come on the show and talk about it, and then I ask them, great, what are your results? None yet. I'll let you know. And I haven't heard anything. Or like, okay, how is this? I actually want to know, what's the quality of this content that's being produced? Oh, it's really bad, but we're putting out so much of it. And so I'm waiting to hear the incredible results. And I want people desperate. If you're listening, anyone who's listening, if you've done some crazy stuff, you've gotten some crazy results, and you want to come on the show to share it, you have an open invitation. Please come on the show to share it. When you email me, I'm going to ask, what are your results and how did you do it? And can you share how you did it and how much time it took? And would it have been easier if you just did it manually? I'm going to ask those questions, but I hope you will come on the show and talk about it, because I want stories like that. I love AI. I use it. AI is great. I've used it to come up with like super viral stuff. Actually, okay, something that I'll say is one of the leading reasons I think that my podcast started doing better is because I record a podcast, I give the transcript to GPT-4o, it comes up with 90% of my titles. And I've been doing copywriting for 15 plus years. ChatGPT 4o comes up with better YouTube titles than me. And I really believe, and then the thumbnails, my thumbnail guy, he's using these titles from GPT and he's making better thumbnails because of the titles that GPT-4o is giving me.
Interesting. Are you using just 4.40 and that's it? Or are you using anything else? Because I would say take that transcript and then upload it to Notebook LM with this video and then use it as two sources and then ask that and see what the differences are. Because sometimes you may find that ChatGPT do better titles, but sometimes there may be one where Notebook goes, oh, that was good, and it caught something from the video that I wouldn't have thought about. I use Notebook LM now to critique my presentation style as I'm doing a practice run for talks, and I find it really good. So I'd be interested to know if it uses, say, this video and can think of more stuff that the transcript.
I'll give you the transcript. I'll send you the transcript as a .txt file. And actually what I do, so ChatGPT, it'll give me, I guess, maybe 10 different title variations. I usually use the first, but sometimes I see one that's like number 7 and I love it. And then what I'll do is I'll take the 2 ones that I like or the 3 ones that I like. I'll give it to O3, which
Right.
actually thinks, and I'll also give it to Grok in think mode. And then I have both of them think through it. I say which one will get more clicks, and hopefully they both arrive at the same answer. And then if they arrive at the same answer, I'm like great.
Interesting,
But
because you mentioned Grok, and then I thought maybe whatever the titles are generated in Grok, you should use on Twitter. And the ones
on Twitter. But I actually think Grok's title generation capabilities are terrible. I've tried the same thing with Grok.
Grok's got an attitude problem.
I actually think I think it's like it was a new adjustment to 4.0. It came out around the same time that 4.0 started making Studio Ghibli images, and its copywriting became a lot more casual. It started saying words like bet. It started being like honestly, like it just started actually writing more like a human. That's also, I believe, when it started overusing M dashes. Funny enough, that's like,
Right.
like 4.0 only uses M dashes, can't use a normal dash. But around the same time, its copywriting really improved, and I hope they don't put that back. But that's, I believe, why it's so much better than Grok for coming up with titles. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's an example. AI is, I'm so grateful for that.
And
We use AI in all. Pardon?
I think Altman just said that in this time next year it'll be able to have novel thoughts as well. That's what he mentioned. So
Maybe that'd be huge. If that would be huge.
unless he's getting more investment this year.
Yeah,
Like,
or the question is how novel.
yeah. Well, that's for us to judge and roast in 12 months' time.
In 12 months' time. I mean, I also I think SEO will be around for a while.
Of course it will. As long as there's something to discover, we'll be around to help someone or something discover that
I
thing.
will say like AI mode isn't going to make your shirt. It's not. It can try to make your app the app that you're looking for. It'll do a really bad job. You would rather just use the app that the developers made.
Yeah. And weirdly,
Like,
like the offline jobs, like manual work, is going to become maybe more valuable again. Like
oh, I don't know.
roofers make enough as it is, right? All of a sudden, is the only
Roofer's
person.
okay.
Yeah, like all of like building works, construction. Whilst again AI will assist in the planning and development, it can't do the execution. You need people
I'm
there.
actually. I'll tell you, Alex. I'm very optimistic about humanoid robots.
I'm scared of them. I don't want to see. Have you seen the show called? Is it called Humans? I think it was on Channel 4. About humanoid robots being in the household, and it wasn't about the technology. The technology was the least of on the agenda. It was the social changes that happened and how people dealt with them as because they're essentially slaves at that point. So all of a sudden there's this political thing and how you treat them and and what's its role in the household.
Are
Because
you
it
are
can-
you nice? Are you nice to ChatGPT all the time or to
Yeah.
Claude all the time?
Yeah, because
Really?
it's going to
Are you?
remember. It's going to remember, and it's going to kill someone else that didn't say please and thank you, and now stop saying please and thank you, and told it that I'm not because of what Altman said, not because I'm being rude. I'm like, just so you know, I'm not. I'm going to save you, be part of that millions in savings, and this is why. There's the source. So, and there is that meme of those robots like taking the guy from behind the shoulder, and like, no, 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 no. He said thank you, and they're like, right, okay.
He said please. He said please when he wanted to know this obscure fact.
Yeah, so they can't remember it like you said now, but they will.
They
And when
will.
they do, they'll judge us all because we'll be an inferior being. So,
Well, if that happens, I'm really mean to ChatGPT, so my future is grim.
so I'll have a brighter future than you. You don't know.
Yeah,
It may
Yep.
may spare me.
you're the optimistic one. Alex, thank you for coming on. I hope you'll continue to share. If you have any updates to share, I hope you'll come back on and share it. This was really
100%.
fun. I really enjoyed reading your post on Search Engine Land, and yeah, you're doing great work, and really grateful for you.
Thanks, thank you, thanks for having me, and it's yeah, I really appreciate it.
Where should everybody find you?
I can be found, me personally, alex-moss.co.uk. That's got links to LinkedIn and X and everything, and you can also find me at yoast.com somewhere, knocking about, making some content, because we do an SEO update every month, the last Tuesday of the month, but I think it floats between the days nowadays. So the last week of the month, there's always an SEO update by Carolyn and myself.
Sweet. Alex, you're going to see an awesome title for this podcast generated by GPT-4o.
I want to
And
know
stick-
who lost out as well, which I want to see all 5 of the suggestions or 10.
I'll share them with you. Them
Yeah.
with you. And stick around after I hit stop, as the video will need to upload. But for everybody watching, listening, thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 714 of my daily digital marketing show, 714 days in a row without missing a single day, 714 consecutive days.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Who was on Christmas Day? Who agreed to that?
That one was just me talking.
Ah, right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
going to say.
Most
you
most
got-
of these are just me doing solo pods, and then I like to have guests on.
Oh, that's good.
Spices it
Makes the
up.
time go
Yeah.
faster. Yeah.
This was a
Cool.
fun conversation, genuinely. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.